Okay, here is Anchorage, and this is the Kenai Peninsula. Okay, when you leave Anchorage, come down the Seward Highway. This is the Turnagain Arm. We're going to talk about that. And there are basically two highways. Here's the Seward Highway, comes all the way down to Seward. And the Sterling Highway actually goes all the way down to Homer. Soldotna, Kenai are some towns that people will often visit. And then also over here at Whittier. So those are the main points of interest on the Kenai Peninsula. And it's named that because the city of Kenai, but for this area, more importantly, the Kenai River. Hi, and welcome to Two Tired Teachers. We are coming at you from the Kenai Peninsula, and we have been here a little over 2 weeks, and we're just going to kind of walk you through what we've done since we've been here. And that is, we got on the peninsula. It's not technically part of the peninsula, but the Turnagain Arm. We spent the nights of July 22nd and 23rd there. And the big thing to do there is to watch the tide change.
Yes. It's a huge tide change.
Now that sounds like watching paint dry, but it's not. The tide change here near Anchorage is around 30 feet.
Yes.
And you literally are watching either undercurrent going out or waves coming in.
Yes.
We didn't set up a time lapse or anything like that, but you could go out at various times and see this huge just mud flats all the way across the bay, and then the next time you look out there 20, 30 feet of water covering that same area. And so we spent a couple of nights there resting up because our next stop was in Soldotna.
For the Alaska missions.
And Soldotna and Kenai are just literally, there's a river that separates them.
Yeah.
A river runs through there. The Kenai River. And we joined with Alaska missions to work on with the beach net fishing. And
with the dip net fishing.
That's on the beach. Sorry. But for 3 weeks, basically, they allow dip net fishing. And if you have no idea what that is, like we didn't, in this area, the Walmarts have dip nets. And the nets are about 5 foot diameter. And they're on poles that are about 20 to 25 feet long. And they're in parts, and they connect, and then...
And they have poles for children.
But these people go out in their waders, and they wade out into the Kenai River and in the, I've forgotten the other one. But they'll wade out. There's very specific regulations, fishing regulations for the Kenai Peninsula to protect the salmon. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
But there are millions of salmon. There's commercial fishing. There are households. And what this is to allow residents, you have to live in Alaska for at least a year, but residents to supplement their food.
Yes.
And so the head of the house is allowed 25 salmon per season, and each household member after that is allowed 10. And so you would see people out there with these huge nets, and over the course of a weekend, they're catching for their household. They may fish in proxy for an aging parent. They may fish, for household members. The person may not actually be there on the beach, but they can fish for them. But anyway.
And they bring up their kids knowing this is part of life in Alaska. And so teens, especially, are very helpful in that.
Yeah, and like Mylena was saying, there were some little kids out there where their little nets were like 2-inch diameter, and they've got on their little bitty waders.
2 feet.
Yeah, 2 feet, duh. And we're going to get to my slippage here in a minute. But these little kids out there in their little waders. But then the other thing is, folks, we taught high school. I mean, secondary is what we taught. I can only name one or two students that I know were working to help provide for their family. Out on that beach, there were teenagers out there helping to put food on the table. That's what they were doing. And it's very much a family thing. And some of them would fish in rotation so that somebody's sleeping, somebody's out fishing, somebody's cleaning. And, I mean, they're having a good time, too.
Yes.
You know, it's a big camping on the beach weekend and stuff.
And the nice thing about the mission trip, they provided things for the little ones to do. They had story time. They had a bounce house.
Face painting, balloon animals.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of what we did is we would serve hot dogs, water, lemonade, and then trash pickup. Now, we could not pick up any fish remains because that's part of what goes back into this area is the remains of these fish provide nutrients for the water, the soil, etc. And then also at the restroom areas, ensuring everything's clean, everything's stocked, etc. And we just had an opportunity to pray with people on the beach. And so that was basically a week of our time there. And while we were there with Alaska Missions, I honestly had about decided I'm not even going to try to fish while I'm on the peninsula because the regulations are ridiculous. Quite literally, this half-mile strip of this river on these dates, you can fish for these fish with these hooks. I kid you not. And the people who live here on the peninsula are not happy about how stringent the regulations are. But folks, if they weren't, salmon could be overfished. And so I get it. But I did find out that with a rod and reel, I could go and fish from the shore, salmon fish. And I brought nothing for salmon fishing. I have stuff for trout and Arctic grayling, obviously. So I thought, you know what? If I don't have a hook in the water, I'm not going to catch anything. And whether it's right or wrong, the gear I have is made for salmon fishing. I'm going to get out there and have a great time. And so we happened to stop at a garage sale on Saturday night as we were leaving the beach. And I was telling the guy, you know, I'm going to try and go salmon fishing. I don't have a reel that's made to hold 25-pound line, which is, some people in our group said that's what you'd need so they don't just snap it, because these are very strong fish. And I told him, I said, you know, I don't have anything that'll work, but I'm going to get out there and I'm going to try. And the man came around and he had a reel in his hand and he said, this will land a salmon. It's $2. And so I paid him the $2 and then I looked and it was a Garcia Mitchell 300 reel, which I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, that'll land a salmon all right. But I got it, and if you know Doc Neiman's, you get them at Walmart for $10 rod and reel combo. I used one of those rods to put this giant reel on. And so Monday on our day off, I went down to the Kenai River and got out there, and all of these people are flossing. They know exactly what they're doing. And I've got my little kitty rod and reel out there. And folks, after less than 30 minutes, I had landed a king. Well, actually, I had landed it. The young man from Wisconsin on the right and the gentleman from Washington State on the left had helped me to land a king. Only salmon I've ever caught so far, trying to remedy that, but it was a lot of fun. Okay, we have just come out of the Alaska Kenai National Wildlife Refuge Center, and actually found this by accident. I was looking for the visitor center for the city of Soldotna yesterday, and that's where this is. And so I followed the signs for the visitor center and found this. And so we knew we were leaving today. We were going to hitch up, and I said, on our way out, we need to go by there and just
explore.
And what was your impression?
It was wonderful. The glacier part was excellent. The ranger was so informative.
We just peppered her with a lot of questions about the peninsula and things we need to go and see and do.
And she does a lot of programs for little kids. Tell them about the program, about the thing they have here. the bark.
Oh, for your dogs that you bag their waist, you always carry a leash, you respect wildlife or something,
Probably.
and keep them in a. I don't remember, but anyway, but it's what you would expect of a national park kind of a thing, where the discovery part, the part you walk through and get to play with, was so much fun. We're not going to put the bird sounds and stuff on here, but they had buttons you could push to hear all the different types of birds. They had taxidermy.
They
all
had
kinds
a
of
little help the bear get to where he needs to be without getting killed.
It's one of the. It's like a
Maze.
maze, yeah. And you had to make the bear move around without getting, go to cars and stuff like that. Just all kinds of stuff. You could feel the fur from wolves and bears, Wolverine, lynx, yeah, all kinds of stuff.
And they had a beaver dam, and little bitty ones could crawl in there and play around. And they had uniforms that were worn by workers, and they could try on the hats and the goggles and the.
So the point is, kids of all ages, you can come here, and they do have hikes periodically, and they do have a few ranger programs.
And there are lots of, at least from what I've seen so far, there are paved hiking trails, which make it a bit easier if you have some mobility problems.
So, this is one of our stops on the peninsula. The point here is, listen to the rangers.
Yes.
When we were at the Kenai Wildlife Center, we asked the ranger. We told her we were heading down to Homer. Is there anything we need to stop and see? And she said, well, just past the state park on your left, I don't remember what state park it was, but the little town of...
I do not know, but it's the same name as State Park.
And she said there's a little Russian Orthodox church there, and you can get out and walk around it and see it, and you can see it is just amazing. And then you can take pictures, you can see the view from there, and stunning views.
Yes.
And she said, we told her we were towing, she said there is a little turnaround there, and there is.
Yes.
And obviously, there's a road that an RV can get on down there.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can zoom you in and you can see. Yeah, right there. But we don't know where we are or what we're doing, and there's some RVs over there as well. So
They're just parked.
yeah. So we're gonna enjoy the view. There's some more RVs on a hill over there, and answer the phone. When you plan that trip in your head, the sun's always shining, it never rains, and the temperature's always a comfortable 70 degrees, and anyway.
You're well.
We've had a cold. We've each had colds. And so the point is, you got to go with what you got. And so we were down at Homer, near Homer, and I got a really scratchy throat. And Mylena knew I was sick when she said, well, why don't we go back and you can salmon fish? And I'm like, no, I need to go get medicine. But anyway, so that was Tuesday night. We stayed down near Homer. Wednesday, we went back through Kenai, stopped at Walmart, grabbed some, just cleared out their pharmacy in the cold and flu section. And our next stop was Seward. And so we drove over here. We drove, there's this really nice paved area on the Exit Glacier Road. And this morning we moved from the side with the river to the other side because we'd spent 3 nights over there. We've seen this parking area since we've been here. We've just slept and rested and done nothing. And now we're well, you can tell. Cover your cough, cover your cough. But anyway.
Sorry.
Just want to let you know, folks, the reality of life as you're traveling is you got to roll with the flow. You got to go with, and it's not our favorite part. We're just thankful that we have some...
We're thankful we were well for the mission trip.
Well, and that we don't really have a schedule
No.
for anything really until the state fair. And so, we were looking at, well, where do we want to go? What do we want to do? And, well, sleep was number one. And so we're on the mend now, but, we don't want to give the impression that everything always goes exactly as planned. This wasn't planned.
We want to let you know reality.
When we got to Seward, I knew what I needed was to sleep. Just stop. We've been on the go for, we've taken our time. If you've watched our travels, you know we've not been
But there
traveling
was
fast.
no taking your time at the mission trip.
No. And so, at Seward, there's a large pull-off. 10, 11 RVs
Yeah.
pull off there every night. And we pulled off.
And it was beautiful.
And it was a wonderful place, but folks, when you've got an 18-foot box by 7 foot, I knew she was going to be sick too.
And I was.
And so we were at Seward, I think, five nights
Yeah.
and did laundry. We did actually go down into Seward, but once again, it's one of those where the seaside property is just... You got RV, and I didn't take video of that because that's not pretty. But the peninsula is the most densely populated area of Alaska we've seen. We've explored areas where you're miles. No, you really, there's not a lot of population. It's not a lot. It's not heavily populated. The peninsula is. It's much more crowded than anywhere else. But so Whittier. We stayed there. We did.
Seward?
That's the one. We stayed there. We did laundry. I did go around and take a picture of what I think they said was the original start of the Iditarod.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went up to Exit Glacier.
Yes.
And folks, I think that for Homer and Whittier both, if you're taking... And we'll go on and talk about Whittier here in just a second. But those three towns, if you want to take a wildlife viewing cruise, if you want to take a glacier viewing cruise, if you want to go halibut fishing, those are places for those charters.
Yes.
And if you're not going to be taking one of those charters, then there are some hikes. We just weren't up to doing a whole lot of hiking. We did. But while we were at Seward, then the morning before we left, we actually went up to Exit Glacier. And you can see Exit Glacier. There's some views that are really, really good.
On the drive up.
And we went up to Exit Glacier and went to overlooks that you could see, actually, I think as well from the road.
Yes.
But we did, to get over our colds, we got out and it wasn't a mega hike, but it felt like it because we had done nothing but sleep and try and give our bodies a chance to ward off this. And so, anyway, we've been here for a while, but you haven't seen a lot because watching us sleep is just not that much fun. And so it's a little loud sometimes. Not that much fun. But then we came on to Portage, which it's Portage and Whittier.
Yeah.
And we went into Whittier today, and we went to the Portage viewing, the Portage Glacier. It's actually a national forest thing here, but this brings up the only other time I've been to Alaska was when I was working on my master's, and our mother had always said she wanted to go to Alaska and to Hawaii, and we'd been to Hawaii. And so one Sunday morning, I saw in the newspaper where they were advertising a cruise that left the next Sunday. I said, Mom, let's go. And she said, oh, we can't do that. And so we did. And ultimately, we docked at Whittier because the tide at Anchorage is so drastic that you can't. And so we docked at Whittier, and by that point, all I really remember is we got off of the ship, and there was a bus sitting there, and we got on the bus, and the bus was next to a train, a flatbed train. And there was a giant ramp, and the bus drove up on the flatbed train, and I'm sure they secured the bus, but there was a row of buses to take all of the passengers from this cruise ship, and they loaded us on this flatbed train, and then we found out the reason is because there were no roads into Whittier. There was a train, and so we had to ride the train through the tunnel, and then down the road somewhere, they let us off. They stopped the train, and then they'd let the buses, they stopped the train, then move forward, let a bus off, stop the train, move forward, let a bus off, etc., with these big ramps on the other side, and then the bus took us into Anchorage to the airport. Well, because our mother and I had, Marlena didn't like to travel at that point. We weren't
and I
leaving.
was working. I hadn't been teaching that long.
I was working on my master's, and I took finals 1 week, we left, and then I went back and started summer school shortly after. But anyway, so we got into Anchorage, and I told Mother I want to see a glacier while we're here, kind of. And so we went down to car rental places. How much is yours? We found the cheapest car, and we drove back down to Portage because you could actually see the Portage Glacier, or whatever that glacier is. It was right here, and I remember driving that Seward Highway. It was just memorable. But anyway, so I'd been through that tunnel once before the car traffic was allowed, but I was actually sitting, the only time I've ridden a train was sitting on a bus. So, that's my story. We went to Whittier today, and believe it or not, the way the schedule is set, the half hour, you can go into Whittier on top of the hour, because the traffic is shared by those going to Whittier, those coming out of Whittier, and trains.
The train.
And there are still, but now you actually just board a, we've seen them. They're the kind of bubble top trains where you get to see the view the whole way, and they take you into Anchorage. We've seen a number of those. Alaskan train line or whatever that is. But, so we went in at the half hour, drove the city, and we'll show you the footage we have. It was misting very, very hard. And, by the top of the hour, we weren't going to go on any hikes. We just came right back out. It was $13. We didn't have the RV with us, but it was loads of fun.
Hi.
We are finishing our time at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. And it's a cold, dank, wet, drizzly day. And it's open rain or shine.
Yes.
And you can walk it or you can drive it, and there are tour buses
That dump people out, and they get to walk it.
We did see some people driving Class C's around here, so that is a possibility. What's your overall take, Marlena?
Well, I'm thrilled that a nice lady who works here gave us a pass several days ago.
Yeah, actually, as we were coming, it was a couple of weeks ago, as we were coming down on the on the Seward Highway
to the Kenai Peninsula.
Marlena was visiting with her at a gas station, and so we actually got a free pass, which is awesome, and we really appreciate that.
It costs $25 per person. There is a discount for military people and veterans.
And Alaskan residents.
And Alaskan residents.
I will say, depending on, kind of my overall take here is, depending on your, what kind of timeline you have and where all you're planning on going, coming here ensures you see animals that are native to the state.
And you may not see them if you've flown in and are
an unlimited amount of time.
Yes.
For your $25, like we said, you can walk, you can drive, and you can loop it as many times as you want to. There's also a gift shop
In a single day.
Yes, in that single day. It's near Anchorage. It is just as you're getting down on, starting the Kenai Peninsula. If you get to the turn, if you're going south, if you get to the turn on the left for the Portage Valley, you've gone too far. But it's right at that little area.
Yes.
So, if you're here, you have time, and you want to be sure that you see the wildlife, this is a way to do it. And we hope you've enjoyed our rainy look at some wet animals. Thanks for watching Two Tired Teachers.